Hi everyone, Trina here, and this is 2.5 of the Divine Sophia, and we were talking about the polarities of masculine and feminine and what they do and how they operate when they're in balance and how they operate when they're out of balance. And through those imbalances, all the things that we see within our world now, today reflecting those imbalances. So, I am resuming on page 185, and it starts, "The inner queen needs her inner knight." This is where the legends of the knights in shining armor come from. These parts of ourselves live as archetypes within us. In order to come into balance, we must each embrace both sides of ourselves. The first step is connecting with the inner yin. This is why many spiritual paths teach us to go inside. First, this is the path. We must go inside. So once the queen is connected to the positive forces of creation, she knows what to do. She can channel these forces into the world through the divine masculine. This inner male has the power to take our ideas into the world of action. In other words, these two polarities need one another, because when we are out of balance, the knight and the queen are both in trouble. This analogy makes perfect sense to me. Shasta was speaking again. The solution to all of these global personal problems is to figure out where we are in our balance. When we choose positive expressions of ourselves, we attract positive expressions in others. When we give in to our negative polarities, then we will attract the negative expression in others. If you imagine these four paths as separate columns, two outer negative paths will always attract each other, but they can never work out because they are essentially self-destructive. The dominating male is the warrior without wisdom. He lacks connection with his true center. The submissive, negative, manipulating female has no self-worth or inner power. She looks outside of herself to survive. But she cannot choose wisely because she neither knows nor loves herself. Neither are connected to the source or the truth within. These two negative polarities are on a path of self-destruction and cannot accomplish anything positive. They not only hurt other people and each other, but destroy themselves as well. On the reverse side, the positive male and the female polarities will also attract to each other. This is the secret to a good romance. This, the man or the woman who expresses the best qualities of the male or the female, and as they move into greater balance, they come to express the best qualities of both. But to attract a healthy mate, we must first each balance our male and female aspects internally. If either person in a romantic relationship is wounded or is out of balance, then they must work on themselves first, or else they will only attract another person who is really equally out of balance. So, I saw several of the women nodding, perhaps thinking of romantic relationships that had not worked out. We live in an age when the roles of men and women are changing, and sometimes a marriage doesn't work because one of the partners is growing faster than the other. In every relationship we have, each person is somewhere on the continuum of these polarities. Donna rubbed her chin thoughtfully, and Susan crossed her arms. I wondered what they were thinking about. Shasta went on, when a woman is free to express her best self, she is wise, loving, creative, inclusive, inspiring, and tuned in. She has a healthy sexuality but does not overstep her own boundaries or anyone else's. And she does not need to manipulate. By bringing out the best in herself, she brings out the best in others. Meg raised a hand. Can you describe the positive man? I had hoped someone would ask this question. When a man is in his positive polarity, he is not trying to seize power from anybody else. He is empowered within himself. He moves out from his own center, not from a place of absolute power, conquering, or controlling, but from a place of vision, inclusion, and support. He gives as well as he receives. He listens as well as leads. And because of this, he is respected. He doesn't have to take a power or goods from anyone. He doesn't have to control or dominate anything. When a man is in balance, he is not run by his ego or his sexual appetite. He can take action to support and protect the things he cares about. This made a lot of sense to me. I also went along with the Mars, Venus work by John Gray, and he believes that men are their best when they are taking care of those that they love. This makes them feel empowered and strong, and it is easy for them to set goals and accomplish them when their heart is motivating them. Gray says that women are their best when they are receiving, for they are best by nature, caring, creative, and inspiring, and they can help the man to be the best self. Both of these polarities meet in the heart, and it is there that the yin and the yang are successfully balanced. So now, Shasta said, we are going to do an exercise. She began to pass out notebooks. Each one of you is going to make a list of all the positive and negative male and female traits within yourself. I took a pad and passed on the stack. Make 4 columns on your page and place the negative polarities on the outer with the female on the left and the male on the right. Put the positive polarity columns in the middle. Now she looked at the group. Write down all your negative behaviors that are too aggressive, thoughtless, or destructive in the negative male columns. Too needy, manipulative, or underhanded in the negative female column. Once you are done, list all of your positive habits, attributes, or behaviors in the positive female column. And last, name all of your effective, action-oriented behaviors in the positive masculine column. When you are done, we will talk about this as a group. Okay, so next, the projection of the shadow. Negative begets negative. This was certainly an interesting exercise. I began my personal inventory. I couldn't help but reflect on how these core dynamics had affected cultures across the world. While the polytheistic worship of the Divine Mother and Father had obviously worked for thousands of years, giving us a positive role model for both genders, something had clearly gone wrong over the last 3 millennia. In Christianity, the only role models that we had left were the obedient Mother Mary, the patient Mary, and the penitent Mary Magdalene. And yes, the independent Lilith the Jews had created and then demonized as the first rejected wife of Adam. And of course the disobedient, regretful Eve, whose eating from the hidden, forbidden fruit had caused humankind to be expelled from paradise. No wonder women felt so dispowered, oppressed, and confused. If they stood up for themselves, they were called bitches, whores, and demons, or worse. What had happened to the positive role models in past civilizations? They had crystallized into the archetypes of the ancient goddess. Perhaps we did need the images of these more empowered beings to inspire us to choose more empowered role models. During the last 2,000 years, the patriarchy had suppressed the positive expression of the feminine. The more power that women lost, the more they had to use their feminine wiles in a negative, manipulating way. The result was that men continued to project this image of the deceptive, lying, sexual siren onto women everywhere. This is the negative female polarity, which clearly does not fit most of the women living today. Philo, a highly respected Jewish philosopher of Alexandria during Jesus' time, betrayed his own prejudice against women in this illuminating and frightening passage. No Essene takes a wife because a wife is a selfish creature, excessively jealous, and an adept in beguiling the morals of her husband, and seducing him by her continued impostures. For by the fawning talk which she practices, and the other ways which she plays her part like an actress upon a stage, she first ensnares the sight and hearing, and then, when these criticisms have, as it were, been duped, she cajoles the sovereign mind. We see here the negative polarity that Philo is attaching to others about women. While it may have been true for some women, it certainly was not true for all. And whatever flirty, frivolous, uneducated, needy behavior these women displayed was no doubt a consequence of being made powerless for hundreds of years. Here are a few examples of what Hebrew men were teaching their sons. These following quotes come from the Testament of Reuben, which is part of the apocryphal writings not included in the Orthodox canon of the Old Testament. It gives a terrifying insight into how Jewish men once treated their women. Women are evil, my children, because they have no power or strength to stand up against man. They use wiles to try to ensnare him by their charms, and man, whom woman cannot subdue by strength, she subdues by guile. For indeed the angel of God told me about them and taught me that women yield to the spirit of fornication more easily than a man does. They lay plots in their hearts against men by the way they adorn themselves. They first lead their minds astray, and by a look they instill the poison, and then in the act they take them captive. For a woman cannot overcome a man by force. So shun fornication, my children, and command your wives and daughters not to adorn their heads and faces. For every woman that uses the wiles of this kind has been reserved for the eternal punishment. Wow, that's pretty severe. Sounds a lot like pure misogyny. This man justifies his own prejudice against women by claiming that an angel of God told him this was the truth. From this passage, it is also clear that women were prohibited from wearing makeup or dressing or making themselves more attractive, even for their husbands. And if they did, at least according to this writer, such an act would have damned them to eternal punishment. We can see, however, both the negative and the masculine and the negative and the feminine currents at work here. The more a man takes away the woman's right to express herself in a powerful, positive, empowered way, the more he limits her choices, and all she is left with are the covert expressions of her neediness. However, when a man honors a woman and praises her for her positive physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual qualities, she will stand by him forever, not only out of duty, fear, or coercion, but out of a willingness to support him and support the best in him. So they go on to talk about more of these ideas of the women and how it was evil to be powerful. So in retrospect, and this is page 191, so how we have gotten so out of balance as a world, How have our cultures become so toxic over the past 3,000 years that they have created such distortions and lies? How can we ever find our way out of the enormous mess? In denying the beauty, wisdom, and essence of our own spiritual natures and the balances of both, the masculine and the feminine qualities, intrinsic to us all, we have cut ourselves off from our many gifts. We lose connection with our feelings, our intuition, and our more advanced gifts of inner sight, hearing, knowing, and dreaming. We become the judges of our own inner natures and create stress and evil and war within. We also stop developing these positive spiritual gifts taught by the masters of wisdom. And this is something that Jesus reminds us when he says, "He who believes in me, the works that I do, he shall do, and greater works." He who believes in me, the works that I do, he will do also, and greater works than these he will do, because I go to my Father. John 14:12. For it is only through the heart that one can harmoniously blend these two worlds together and attain mastery. The failure to honor the polarities in a positive way is the primal wound of the vanishing age of Pisces, and it is the error that we do not want or need to repeat in the next age of Aquarius. In this next cycle of human evolution, we can choose to create a world that honors both the male and the female, both people and animals, both the earth and our responsibility as the guardians of it. If we can remember to honor our roles as fully integrated human beings, or as she calls, the Homo Luminous. And they told me it would be a kind of called a earth angel. So she was told it would be called the Homo Luminous, and I was told it would be an earth angel. But they told me this when I was a little kid, so it was probably one of the only words I could understand. Because angel means light to me. So they showed me, she was shown Homo Luminous, and I was literally shown an earthbound body that became luminous, like earth angels became angels. So it's kind of cool. We see things the same way, but we were taught a little bit different, and I love that. It's just beautiful. So next is immanence and transcendence. Man may know himself and so know the cosmos by being aware that he is the image of Atum and of the cosmos. He differs from other living things in that he possesses mind. Through mind, he may communicate or commune with the cosmos, which is the second God. And by thought, he may come to knowledge of Atum, the one God. Thoth Hermetica. As I pondered the meanings of all I had learned, I knew the path to mastery lay at the center of these two polarities. It was the middle path. The teachers, such as Buddha, Jesus, and Thoth, had long taught to humanity. Buddha had called it the middle way, while earthly followers of Jesus had called it the way, and Thoth, the ancient god of wisdom in Egypt, had called it the ancient way. It is the path of the heart, where the synthesis of male and female come together in union. And I realized that this union of yin and yang, so beautifully expressed in the Tao, where each contained its opposite, had long been taught by the mystics. Suddenly, Many of the Hermetic symbols seemed to make sense to me, and I realized that the sacred balance might be the only thing that could save this world. I also realized what an enormous chasm existed between the punishing tribal God of the Old Testament and the merciful presence that I knew as the Creator. This presence was both deeply personal and also universal, and connected to everyone and everything. I experienced it on a regular basis whenever I interacted with Regal and Ariel, my two spirit guides, direct aspects of the Divine Father and Mother. Knowing this, we have the choice to embrace a more universal image of the divine that offers an integrated spiritually, or to continue to defend these dysfunctional belief patterns that have generated so much suffering in the world. This journey had also made me realize that there have been many cultures on this planet that once had a partnership model. I knew that if we had done it before, we could do it again. But the foundational piece for most of us would be establishing a theological framework that includes both the Divine Mother and the Divine Father. Then we would have a basis from which to create a mutual partnership from, and how to create a peaceful existence, a coexistence. My investigations had also helped me clarify some of the many negative currents I had felt pervading the churches of my childhood. For the first time, I understood how preaching about a God of vengeance alongside a God of forgiveness and love could make us all schizophrenic. I realized what we have come to accept as religion today is the result of many centuries of social, religious, and political agendas stacked upon one another, some of which belong to a less enlightened age. Human beings impose their own preconditioned prejudices onto God, seeing only through the limitations of their own filters. They conceive of the Creator in their own image. And if these cultures have been distorted by fear or anger, then this is the way they see their God. These religious prejudices are then passed down through a long line of convoluted customs, traumas, political manipulations, and devastating wars. While the initial spiritual teachers for any of these paths may have once been a messenger of the highest truth, as the centuries pass and the ambitions, fears, and prejudices of the subsequent leaders are overlaid on top of these teachings, what once was an enlightened message became skewed by the controlling elite's iron grip on power, position, and financial survival. This seems to produce self-righteous individuals who are either unwilling or unable to take the mote out of their own eye because they are so busy pointing to their neighbor. So, in the name of God and righteousness, these regimes leave a legacy of horror, division, destruction, and warped thinking in their wake. Today, an entirely new era for the world begins. We do have a choice. As the influence of the dualistic age of Pisces wanes, the balance of this highly polarized equation can shift into a more enlightened state. The astrological symbols of the two complementary fish of Pisces was undoubtedly meant to symbolize the reciprocal balance between the male and the female in partnership. As we can see in Figure 10, they are connected, yet the two fish are entirely going in different directions, creating the duality of Pisces. In its exalted form, it is the merger of the male and female polarities that create the Christ consciousness. But in its less aware expression, it becomes the age of dominator, persecutor, and victim, a theme that we have been living through with life-destroying consequences. And this is the symbol of Pisces. Oops. Okay, lost some of my page markers. Okay. So, we will pick up on the new cusp of the age of Aquarius and the impact of our belief systems upon our lives coming up next. I'm going to read ahead and see what I think is the most vital, and we'll go ahead and read from that, and I'll let you guys know page numbers as I go. And we literally just finished on page 195. So I love you guys. I hope you guys are finding this interesting. I think it's important that we start to understand our history and what's happened to it and try to focus on ways that we can fix it. And with this understanding and these practices, I really do think that this is going to be the fastest way that we will see changes among the planet. And these changes will be within the changes that we create within ourselves, because I do know that we are creating this reality. It comes through us. So that's why television and all the visions that we've been told to see, we've now manifested the reality to match the visions that we were told. And the ones that were telling us the visions, they didn't have a good vision for us. So it's time for us to connect to both parts of what we are in all four poles. And I see those poles as north, south, east, west. Earth, air, fire, and water. So they're associated with those powers. So embrace those powers. Control your emotions, because it matters a lot about what you think, and it matters a lot what you speak. But the most important ingredient is what you feel. So try to feel good as often as you can. And simple random acts of kindness. Guys, these are where you get your treasures in heaven. So start filling your storehouse, because those are going to be the things that you value most. So I know this is true. I've seen it. I've seen it. And the small random acts of kindness, they produce waves of good in a matrix that's filled with darkness. So do anything you can. A smile, a wave, a prayer, a thought, positive thoughts of healing, supporting people you love. All those acts, seen and unseen, they all have measure, and they will be measured in your heart. So I love you all. Be kind to one another. Love one another as you would love yourself. And if you don't love yourself, no, it's a common thing, and we're all working on that. Self-love is our greatest challenge in this world. So work on that. Love yourself. Have so much love and compassion for you, and understand that everything that you are is an experience. So we've all experienced many, many things, and don't judge the experience. Use it as a tool for wisdom, and use it as a tool to help others who might be stuck in it, how to climb their way out through finding healing and finding wisdom through our traumas. Because we've all taken on serious things so we could overcome them, and we could learn valuable lessons. Because the soul is gathering all of this wisdom and information, and I'm sure that there's a very important reason for this. So trust what you know, and feel well, and watch that vibration grow, and love yourself, because through loving yourself, you help love all of us. So I love you, and I will see you on the next one.